and we're looking.
So who will define ETF for us here? Whoever defines it gets a gift. Just a short definition, nothing serious.
Right, nothing too technical. The basic, simplest, most basic definition.
Okay. In the absence of no definition, so my gift is going. I'm quite sad. If you said it's like a mutual fund, Cassandra said
Okay.
a basket of securities that track an index.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
We have a couple of finance gurus.
Bayo said ETFs are companies that do pool investments.
Pooled investments.
Trendy Daddy said we don't know what ETFs is. We are beginners.
Okay.
All right, that's why we're here to break it down for you and let you know what ETFs are, the opportunities you can take advantage of in the ETF space, and all of
Yeah.
that. Trust me, you're going to go with a handful of knowledge at the end of the session.
All right.
So I will allow Chidima introduce the section to us.
Yes, so I think we can kick off now. So, like a number of people have said, ETFs mean or stand for exchange traded fund. And then I'm going to start with a simple illustration that I think a lot of us will be able to relate with, especially our fit farm bodies that might be in the house. So imagine you go to the market and then you get apples, bananas, watermelon, oranges, different.
I can hear you clearly.
Oh my.
Can you hear Chidima clearly now?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I'm guessing they can. Or you can proceed.
Okay. So I can go ahead. Yes. So I was giving a simple illustration of ETFs really and how they work. And then I said, imagine if you go to the market and then you purchase different fruits. You purchase bananas, you purchase apple, oranges, watermelon, and then you take all of these fruits together and then you blend them into a fruit smoothie and you drink. Now, when you're drinking this smoothie, you're not drinking just apple or banana. You're drinking everything together as one. And really, that's how ETFs work. ETFs, there is a, should I say, more technical explanation or definition of what ETFs is. I'll leave that for Juliana to give us. But basically, that's the concept. You have all of these investment securities bundled up in one. And then just by purchasing that, you can have access to it. So, Juliana?
Yes, I mean, Chidma broke it down already, meaning you can take advantage of a lot of things just in one. Maybe you can are unable to afford just one fruit. You can have a taste of everything just in one because they are blended together.
True.
That's how the ETF work. So the technical definition of an ETF is a collective investment scheme. Collective investment scheme, just like the mutual funds and the like. I think the mutual funds are still quite popular. I think it's something a lot of people can relate to.
True.
So the collective investment scheme that seeks to replicate the performance of an index. Now you'll be wondering what is an index. I don't want to go to technical. I want you to understand this session. Chidima, please help me with the definition.
Okay, so she mentioned an ETF tracks an index, or an ETF measures the performance of an index. What is an index? An index really is a list, or like somebody said in the chat section, it's a basket of investment securities. So I'm some of us may be familiar with stocks or bonds, but there are other investment securities like commodities. Now imagine we have all of these stocks or bonds in one basket, right? We refer to that as an index. So what the ETF does is to mirror or track the performance of an index. Now, I'm going to give us some, should I say, statistics or key things we should know about the ETF industry in Nigeria. Currently, we have about 12 ETFs listed on the Nigerian exchange. Do not worry if you don't know the meaning of Nigerian exchange. I'll still go further to break that down. But we have about 12. And the total value of that is over 12 billion naira.
That's quite a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. And I mean, it just speaks to the investment opportunities that abound in the ETF industry. And also, Meristem we have our own two ETFs. I'm going to now shift the conversation to Juliana to take us through the Meristem ETFs and the advantages that you get to experience when you buy into our ETFs.
All right. So Chidima just mentioned ETF markets value is what, over 12 billion naira. Who would sleep on such opportunity?
That's a lot.
So yeah, we in Meristem, we're also taking advantage of this market by having two products listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange.
Yeah.
One is the Meristem Value ETF, and the other is the Meristem Growth ETF. I'll still dive further. But before diving further, what are the advantages? What are the benefits of investing in this ETF? I mean, if I put my money in this ETF, what can I take? What can I benefit from investing in it? One is capital appreciation. I'm sure when you hear equities, you hear, okay, for example, there's been rally on some stocks, like maybe Zenith and the likes. Maybe they were trading at 20 something naira at the start of the year. And presently trading at over 30 naira. That's like capital appreciation. Just like our ETF, at the start of this year, the value ETF was trading at 17 naira and presently is over 20 naira. The growth ETF started trading at about 16, it's presently 19 naira or so. So that shows the level of capital appreciation you can take advantage of. That means if you had gotten the value ETF at the start of the year, you will be gaining over 33% as at right now that I'm talking.
True.
So it shows that the capital appreciation prospect is very, very, very massive. Then we also have dividend payments. Just like the equity, there are some stocks that are very, very known for paying dividend annually. Our ETF is also a dividend paying ETF. I mean, we sustained the trajectory for the past 2 years, paying dividend to our investor. Apart from the fact that you're taking advantage of capital appreciation, you are also taking advantage of the fact that you would get dividend at the end of the year. So dividend payments, capital appreciation prospects.
You don't want to sleep.
Oh my goodness. So I mean, there's still much more. There's still much more benefits. I would like Chidima to take that.
Okay, so in addition to capital appreciation and dividend, another thing you want to look out for is the cost. Now, with ETFs, you have a low transaction cost. Now, imagine if you had to purchase each of these stocks by yourself. I mean, you'd be buying about 10, 14, 16 stocks, and you're going to incur broker's commission on each of those purchases. But with the ETFs, you only need to purchase just our ETFs, basically 1 unit, 10 units, irrespective of number of units you want to purchase, and then you have access to all of these stocks without having to necessarily go and purchase each of them. Another benefit that we provide you is our style of investing. Now, we expose you to what we call value stocks and growth stocks. Now, you may not be a finance expert, but then we have taken the pain to identify winning investment strategies. And we bundled all that up in our product value ETF and the growth ETF. And so now I will move.
Why are you moving emotion to me? All right.
I'll move it to Juliana.
I'm happy to break it down.
Yes, to talk more on the performance of our ETF in terms of what the stocks that they're invested in have done year to date, and also if you purchased 1 unit of ETF at the beginning of the year, what would you have by now?
Okay, so I'll start with, we're talking about value ETF, growth ETF. The grammar is too much. So this value ETF, what's the composition? Maybe when I break it down further, you understand what we're talking about. Number one, value. When we even think of value, layman language, value is something you can benefit from. If you're saying something is giving you value, that means I'm seeing prospect in this thing, I can benefit something from this thing. That's what the value ETF basically means. So the value ETF comprises of about, 15 equities, and there are like several criteria that we personally look at before putting these equities together and wrapping them under value. One is dividend payment. Dividend yield. How has this stocks? How have they been performing in terms of dividend? Let's say for the past 5 years. For the past 5 years, has their dividend yield been increasing progressively? Right? Have they been consistent to paying good dividends to their shareholders? Their earnings means profits. After removing all the costs they've incurred during the year, maybe finance costs and everything,
All
how
interest
much do they
paid.
have left in terms of earnings? Because if a company is sustaining good earning, good profit, it shows that yes, there's value they can give to us. And most times the investors view this value stock as undervalued stock. They believe, oh, this maybe some people are not seeing some value in these stocks and there are values they can still take advantage of.
True.
Those are the kind of stocks that are classified under the value ETF. So I mean, like I mentioned, the dividend yield, earnings, and all of that. Those are the criteria we look at before saying the stock, right,
Yeah.
qualifies to be a part of the value ETF. And for the growth ETF, we look at, I mean, when you're thinking of growth, you're thinking of progression, right? How far do we think this stock has the prospect to progress over the years? So I mean, just like the value ETF, the growth ETF also has about 15 to 17 composition. And we number one criteria we look at under the growth ETF is revenue growth. Why I mean revenue? How much revenue do they sustain? I mean, have they been sustaining over time? Historical revenue
Yeah.
and also projected revenue. So we can project for the past 5 years, project for the next 5 years, and look at okay, these companies, how are they going to perform going forward, even though they've sustained a very good growth trajectory historically. Another thing is also earnings. We also look at okay, these companies have they been doing so well in terms of their earnings performance? Like I mentioned for value ETF, the growth ETF too. For every company, earnings is very very important. If a company is not doing well, how would they pay a dividend?
What's the point?
Why would they even be in existence in
Yeah.
the first place?
Yeah.
So those are the criteria. So those are some of the criteria we look at before buckling this equities together into the value and growth ETF.
Okay, so in summary, you're saying for the value ETF, how we come about deciding what stocks we include in the value ETF. One of the factors, or some of the factors we look at the dividends that those stocks have been paying over time,
Exactly.
how consistent they have been, and then our projections for the future. We also look at their revenue growth. And for the growth, we look at their earnings, that's their profits after we've taken out all the costs and taken out all the interest payments and all the expenses. What does the company have at bottom line, and how well can they grow that bottom line? Okay, so now that's all on the composition, right? Another fun fact I think I should mention here is right now on the Nigerian exchange. I think I should at this point explain what the Nigerian exchange is.
I think
I've mentioned it like 2
what's
times
the Nigerian
now.
exchange? What do they do? They didn't sell clothes.
Okay, so Nigerian exchange, or the exchange as it's popularly called, is more like a virtual market, right? Where people, investors like you and I, go there to sell and buy stocks. So you can think of it as your virtual Balogun market, but what was selling and buying there are just stocks, right? Now, a fun fact is right now on the exchange, our Meristem Value ETF and Meristem Growth ETF are the two only ETFs that provide you with this type of exposure in terms of investing in value stocks and investing in growth stocks. And at this point, I think it's important for us to tell them, what our performance has been. I mean, we're telling you to come and put your hard-earned
Your money,
in
you
an
should
investment
understand
product.
how
We
it
should at
works.
least tell you how well we have performed over the years, at least beginning of the year till date. So
Yeah, so I mean, I think I mentioned something related to that at the start of the session. So for the value ETF, year to date has returned over 35%. For the growth ETF, I mean, based on market price, has returned over 10%.
yeah.
So I mean, how do you even trade this ETF on the exchange? I mean, just like you buy, maybe some people that are already familiar with buying and selling equities, maybe buying MTL, buying whichever equity, just the same way you can buy equities. It's the same way you can buy your ETF on the exchange. On the exchange, we have the Merry Growth, we have the Merry Value. So, like I mentioned at the start of the year, the Merry Growth was trading at about 17 naira, and the Merry Value at about 16 naira. And as of now, the Merry Growth is trading at I think 22 naira roughly, and the Merry Value 19. No, the Merry Growth 19.5 naira, and the Merry Value 22 to 22 naira.
Yeah.
So that shows if you had gotten the ETF at the start of the year, the price change would have been significant. By now, on the value ETF, you'll be taking them 33%. That is very, very substantial. So imagine maybe investing a million naira, right, at the start of the year, and as of now you'll be having about over maybe 1.3 by the time you sell the unit of ETF you bought at the start of the year, and maybe bought it at the start of the year and selling now, you're making that difference. So I mean, that further implies what I was talking about in terms of capital appreciation, right? And if you decide to say, oh, I don't want to sell now, I still want to wait to the end of the year, you get dividend. So you're getting both capital appreciation and dividend. It's very easy, to be honest. Sometimes knowledge is wealth, or knowledge is power, whatever you call it.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I would also, because I envisage or I expect that some questions might come in this line. Some people may want to know what is the difference between mutual funds and ETF, right? They both form collective investment schemes, meaning that people pool their funds together and trust that fund to a fund manager or to a finance manager who has the skill to multiply the money, and then the fund manager makes returns for these people. But how mutual fund ETFs, they operate the same way in terms of their structure, right? But for the ETFs, you have the opportunity to trade it on the exchange. That's why it is called exchange traded funds, because there are some funds that you cannot trade on the exchange, like your mutual fund. And so that key feature of ETFs makes it different or distinguishes it from the mutual funds. Now, I think at this point you can drop in your questions.
Someone is
Okay, I
asking,
see the question here.
Siva is asking, does it depreciate?
Yes, because stocks like ETFs, you know, what it consists of are stocks, right? And stocks have that volatility. It goes up, it comes down. But where you can be rest assured, right, is our experience in having to select the winning stocks for you. From the beginning of the year till now, all the stocks that we had in our portfolio from the beginning of the year till now for our value have returned about 38%, and then our growth ETF 25%. So yes, your stock prices can go up and can go down, but you should also know that, and I think this is where we need to speak about the basic understanding of why you should invest in stocks. Really, you should hold stocks because of the volatility in the market. You want to put in funds that you will not need next month, right? Or you will not need next week, but you want to play for the long haul, say the next 6 months, say the next 1 year. So to answer your question, yes, it does depreciate, but you don't have to be afraid because we've done the background work to ensure that your money does not lose value. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, like Chidi, I'm just further reiterating Chidima's point. Before even trying to dive into investment, especially very volatile investment, because I mean, if you understand equities and stock market, you understand that it's highly volatile. If you understand the dynamics behind the volatility, even if prices are dropping the next day or moving, you understand that okay, this is how the dynamics of the money of the equities market work. So people can give me money now and say, Chidima, please, I want to invest 500,000. And the next day, they are seeing their equities trading at 450,000 naira.
Money is losing value. Sell.
Then you start saying, oh, Chidima was really selling this thing to me, and my money has depreciated. So, but if you understand the dynamics behind investments, those things you won't be bothered because in the near term, this company you're investing in has very strong fundamentals and the like. So you won't be bothered about your money depreciating or whatever. And yes, if you register with Meristem, if you have an account with us, right? The research team gives, weekly updates, stock recommendation, and all of those things to guide you exactly. So you would be more averse in terms of investment and how it works.
Okay, so I'll wrap up with telling you the steps on how to invest in our ETFs. How do you invest in our ETFs? First of all, you can download our Merry Trade account, or rather app. So you go to your app store, you search for Merry, like Meristem, so MERI, and then Trade, Merry Trade. Once you download the app, you open an account and fund it with whatever amount you like to start with. And then you search for MER growth. MER as in the first three letters of meristem. So MER growth and MER value. You search those two words, right? And on the exchange, and then you can just put in your trade. You would see the last price it was traded on. So if you want to buy, you just put in your trade out there. So the Meritrade app is more like a do-it-yourself approach to investing in the stock market without having, necessarily having a broker to help you execute your trades. So
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, that's fine. I'm sure we all know how to invest in the ETF now. So Adebanjo is asking, what's diversity of stock in ETF like? I mean, maybe what's the diversity of stock in ETF like with Meristem? I think maybe you missed it, but earlier I mentioned like the composition of the ETF, both the value and the growth ETF.
Yeah.
We mentioned that the value ETF consists of stocks, right, that have the prospects to give like good value. Most then investors perceive them as undervalued stock. So we believe, oh, this stock have the prospect to deliver more value in the near term, and even historically they've been delivering value and they're going to sustain the momentum of delivering value.
Yeah.
And I mentioned criteria that we select, some criteria we look into before selecting these equities. For example, the value ETF, we look at the earnings growth, I mean historical earnings growth and projected earnings growth. We look at the dividend yield and the likes. So for growth ETF also, we look at, okay, this company, we expect it to maintain this growth momentum.
Mhm.
They will sustain the growth momentum historically and they will sustain it over the year. I mean, they're going to deliver above average results. So we some of the criteria we look at are their earnings growth. I mean, over the years, have they sustained the consistent earnings growth and also revenue growth? So all of those things are some of the things we look into. I mean, there are all other criteria we look at, but I don't want to go too technical,
Yeah.
not to confuse anyone. I mean, some of these ones I'm mentioning, I'm expecting that people can relate to it. So
Okay. And then also to add to that, would also in the composition of all the stocks we have in each of our ETFs, you will find out that there are some stocks we have from the banking sector, from the telecommunications sector, from the industrial sector. So that's how diverse we are in terms of industries that we invest in. I'm seeing another question there saying dollar fluctuations don't affect.
maybe trying to say dollar
Yeah,
formation affecting the
yes,
ETF.
the ETFs are basically a naira based investment product, right? The volatilities in the exchange FX market or the foreign exchange market do not affect your investments here because you're investing in naira and you'll be getting your dividends in naira. And then when you want to sell, you also receive value in naira. All right, I think we're exhausted all the questions. I'm not seeing any
So do
more
we have any more
questions.
questions? I mean, I'm believing we all understand what the ETF works, and we
Yeah.
are willing to, I mean, take advantage of some of these
Okay,
opportunities
please, thank
in
you.
this space.
Okay.
I mean, don't sleep on the opportunities in the investment space. I mean, there
Oh,
are several and countless opportunities, and investing in the ETF is one of those numerous opportunities.
okay. So thank you so much for joining. If you have further questions, please reach out to us. You can send a DM to this account, Meristem NG. And please also, I think it's important for us to warn our audience, right? There are scammers out there. And so no staff from Meristem will reach out to you with their personal email address. And so or ask you for any of your important bank details. If you need any further clarification, please send a DM right here and we'll respond to you.
And somebody's asking another question.
Okay.
How do I log into Meritrade? I mean, if you mean, I don't know if you mean log in or register, but you can get access to the app through the App Store.
Yeah.
You download the App Store, you sign up, and you register. And in case you come across any issue, reach out to us. Just send us an email, and we would solve any problem for you.
Okay, you can also go to our website, meritrade.com. Yeah. So
For
there's
further
also the
clarification.
option of registering with your laptop, or rather registering on the website. There's also then the other option is for you to download the app, whatever works for you.
All right, somebody's also asking another question. I think it's Adebanjo.
Okay.
Chidima, I think you take this.
It
So say
says,
in comparison with treasury bills,
okay.
what's the performance of ETFs like?
Okay, so I will start with the basic distinction, right? We have two major asset classes, traditional asset classes. You can either invest your money in stocks, equities markets, or you can invest your money in the fixed income markets. Now, the T bills fall under the category of fixed income markets. And generally, or should I say historically, because of how, or should I say, the differences in the risk of the two asset classes, you will find that the equities market usually perform more than the fixed income market. And that's because, in terms of risk levels, the fixed income market is not as risky or volatile as the equities market. So, in terms of performance, right now, our ETFs are returning. If you have invested at the beginning of the year till now, we would have had about 33% for your value ETF and
Yeah.
over 10% for your growth ETF. And if you had purchased the two of them, that means you would have about
40%. Yeah.
43% right now. And the T bills market are doing what levels? Is it seven or eight levels?
Yeah.
Yes, about 8%, 9%, thereabouts.
That's
So
interesting.
yes, if you're going to do the look at the differences and make your analysis yourself, you find that equities market, yes, it has its own volatilities, but the ETFs are poised to give you more value in terms of return, relative to your ETBLs.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to reiterate the point I made earlier, understanding the dynamics of the equities market. And
Yes,
also you can
very
decide to,
important.
I mean, diversification is also very important. You
True.
can't put
All
all
of
your
them.
money, right, in a very volatile investment.
True.
Right? So
True.
the T bills
True.
is, I mean, considering the level of risk,
Yeah.
the T bills is still less risky compared to equities. Equities is quite volatile. And if you don't understand the dynamics, you don't understand what is driving this thing, I mean, putting your money into it.
And I think that's why it's very important for you. This is why what I'm bringing to your knowledge how ETFs work. The financial managers have done the grunt work in selecting the stocks that will not make you lose money.